They are setting the precedent to bring in hundreds of new taxes that are then paid to them through government bailouts and corporate welfare. And they're openly changing the rules. They changed them 5 years ago, but now the Chicago Tribune comes out a few weeks ago and says, oh, they've changed the state rules to take public pension funds from police, fire, and teachers, to take all or part. The feds have changed the rules to allow private corporations to take your pension funds. I told you this years ago. Now it's in Bloomberg. Headline, federal regulators ordering private pension fund controllers to invest in failed banks. Your Social Security's already been stolen. Your bank account is next. This is a Ponzi scheme. No matter how much money you put into it, these Kinley, Bernie Madoff types are going to rip you off. We've got global white-collar criminals so powerful. They've gotten away with so many scams. They've gotten away with murder, that they are now openly establishing world government based on carbon taxes, and it's in the Financial Times of London, it's in the AP, it's in Reuters, and then I get Nightline making fun of me last week, saying I'm a kook, none of this exists, when I'm reading out of the newspaper, but the Financial Times of London and the AP, they say global government is great, unelected bankers we pay taxes to, hand our roads, our water districts, everything over to them in, quote, privatization. And it's not even privatization. It's looting. It's robbery. So they can't have it both ways, saying none of this exists, but it does exist. You know, if you're for world government, it exists, and you're smart. If you're against world government, it doesn't exist, and you're Looney Tunes. They are counting on you being stupid, and we don't have much more time. I'm going to open the phones up and continue with news. The toll-free number to join us is 888-201-2244. 888-201-2244. I want to discuss all of these issues with you, but I want to mine in to the economy, to the Republican sweep that's about to happen in the House and Senate. I want to get into the Ground Zero Mosque being a CIA government front, now mainstream news. I want to get into Mexican gunmen fire at Border Patrol agents. I want to get into all of it on the other side of this quick break. Stay with us. Every time I look at my children, I get angry. They're wonderful. They're innocent. They're good. And I care about their future. And I know this great republic, the greatest nation that's ever existed on this planet, full of wealth and ideas and virtue compared to every other country. It hadn't been perfect, but it's been the best, has been taken over by criminal elements that own both parties and are flushing our future down the toilet. Now, when we start the second hour, I'm going to take your calls and go to a bunch of news, but I want to finish up on the issues and points that I've been making. Also want to thank all the new affiliates picking us up. We've had 5 new stations in the last week pick us up. One of them picking up the Sunday show and re-airing at, 6 Central, is KLIF 570 AM, the juggernaut, #1 station there in Dallas. And grew up in Dallas. Great to be on KLIF 570. And, of course, coming to you here in Austin on 590 KLBJ. So very, very exciting on that front as well. Because, again, my friends, we've got to reach as many people as we can, as fast as we can. We've got to get them up to prisonplanet.com and Infowars.com. We've got to get them to read the actual stories we're reporting on and to see the legislation we're reporting on so they understand just how serious this situation is. The police in your town are being federalized, and they're not being trained to take on the supposed radical Muslims. They're being trained to take you and your family on. Let's get into those headlines right now. 9 years after 9/11, few see terrorism as top U.S. problem. That's the good news. 1% in a national Gallup poll think it's the #1 issue. It was 46% thought it was the biggest issue just 2 years ago. So people understand, ladies and gentlemen. You know, let's say the terror is not manufactured. Let's say it's real. Okay. We're going to give up all our rights, all our liberties, pay hundreds of billions of dollars into private defense contractors to set up a third world East German police state in the name of fighting these people, but we leave our borders wide open and allow immigration to flood in. It doesn't hold water. Continuing, September 11th anniversary marked by noise and recrimination. And there were thousands protesting for the mosque, against the mosque, thousands protesting for the Quran. not burning it, thousands for burning it. They had some guy at Ground Zero burn the Koran. Thank God the police didn't arrest him, because whether you agree with it or disagree, you have to agree with his First Amendment right that our veterans fought and died for. People burned it in Tennessee and other areas. And guess what happened, ladies and gentlemen? In Indonesia, in the West Bank, and many other areas, guess what happened? Muslims beat up Christians, attacked them, attacked their churches, burned Bibles. So where is the religion of peace, ladies and gentlemen? Where is it? Listen, I don't like burning a Bible, a Quran, anything else. It's disrespectful, but it's the right of free people to do it. I don't like burning the American flag, but I've got to defend people's right to do it, because if you take their right, well, then this radio show doesn't have a First Amendment right, does it? And I see articles every day out of England where people make mild statements against groups and get arrested. We don't want that system. In fact, put it back up on screen. Christians beaten and stabbed with plank near Indonesian capital, and it's at the site of a mosque, a nearby mosque to a Christian church that was shut down by the Muslim Indonesian government. Now, I defended Muslims' rights to have that Ground Zero mosque. But you have to defend Christians' rights in Saudi Arabia and Indonesia to have churches. But that's not the case. That's not the case. That's not what's going on here. So it's wrong. Continuing with these reports, here is the article out of the New York Observer, and we're putting it up on screen for PrisonPlanet.tv viewers. It's not just a radio show, folks. It's a TV multicast. If you want to see it, PrisonPlanet.tv. And if you're listening later, you can always log in and watch the archive of this show at PrisonPlanet.tv. Utilizing the bizarre, untangling the bizarre, CIA links to the Ground Zero mosque. And this New York Observer report goes into all the bizarre CIA links to directly funding the mosque at Ground Zero. What did we report in the last month at my websites? Publicly available info. This imam is a globalist, a pro-world government supporter, a Davos, Switzerland meeting member, Trilateral Commission, CFR. And if you go to the mosque website, the foundation that's funding it, what is the number one funder? The number one funder is the Rockefeller Foundation. Next, it's the Carnegie Endowment. And if you look at who the Rockefeller and Carnegie Foundations fund, they fund Mecha and La Raza. What does La Raza mean? The race. For those inside the race, everything. For those outside the race, nothing. That is the La Raza slogan. I'm against the Ku Klux Klan, and I'm also against La Raza. It's a racial organization, and for 50-plus years, our government has allowed major foundations to engage in sedition and treason and fund these groups in Mexico and other areas, telling them the Southwest belongs to Mexico, and they're part of La Reconquista, reconquering, or Infosora, the invasion. La Infosora. That's what's on the Spanish radio and TV. That's what's taught in the Mexican schools in Mexico. That's what I was taught at Anderson High School in art class. We were taken to UT and taught this is Mexico and gringos are evil. I was in high school 18 years ago, 19 years ago, as a senior here in Austin, and I was taught that gringos are evil. I was taught this is Mexico because the government wants it. The CIA's funding that mosque. The Ford Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, the Carnegie Foundation, go read it. We knew this a month ago. We did research. It's what we do. They're funding the people and hyping idiots to burn the Koran. I don't like what they're doing, but it's their right. And they're funding the building of that mosque and the hyping of it right now. It came out, what, 2-3 years ago when there was Paris being burned and cars being dumped over and police being attacked. It turned out that known CIA operatives were in control of the newspapers that published the Muhammad cartoons with Muhammad's turban being a bomb and Muhammad, his head on a dog, to get the Muslims hyped up and out of control so that the general public would say, take my rights away, have checkpoints, track everything I do, listen to my phones, keep me safe from Al-Qaeda. Meanwhile, Associated Press admits 2 months after we broke it with people that were on the plane that the unnamed U.S. intelligence agency, quote, ordered the State Department to put the underwear bomber on the stinking plane without a passport, without a visa. You understand this? Do you get it? Do you get it? Do you understand it? They want you scared of the Muslims so the big banks can use our troops and our money with upwards of $2 trillion total defense budget, $100 billion on record, $800+ billion in supplemental and black op funding. You think these mega corporations that could care less about America want their $2 trillion? Are they going to go out and finance an enemy for a couple billion a year? Does that mean that enemy is totally controlled by them? No, it's financed by them. It's protected by them. It's run by them. This is so elementary. This is so simple. And now they've got all these new Republican Tea Party leaders. The Republicans are just as guilty, the Republican leadership, of the banker bailouts, the corruption, the Patriot Act, all of it, as Barack Obama and his gaggle of creatures. His gaggle of Congress critters, as they're called, there in the District of Criminals. And now what comes out? Boehner says that, well, he'll take any tax cut. Go ahead and let the tax cut for $125,000 or up go in. What do you think was going to happen with that? Here's another headline out of AP. GOP tries to take out Tea Party-backed candidate in Delaware. If the GOP finds out you're a real patriot like Rand Paul, what did they do? They had Dick Cheney come into town and speak out against him. They had all the Republicans line up against him. That's the same thing everywhere. And I just want you to remember that. Oh, I'm all for the Republicans throwing the Democrats out. And I'm for keeping their feet to the fire once they're in. And I'm for focusing on the states and taking our states back. And I'm for getting good patriot sheriffs elected and nullifying the out-of-control behavior of this rogue federal government. Speaking of that, we told you this months ago. Obama has stopped border enforcement. He's pulled the Border Patrol off the border. That's even in mainstream news in Arizona. And now he's openly saying they're not arresting or deporting any illegals. We're going to get to that coming up after calls when we start the second hour. This is your rude awakening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the cold ice water thrown on your face. If you want to save the free market, the Second Amendment, your family, if you want to save your pension funds, if you want to save the stock market, we have got to stop these top 6 global banks who want world government and who are financially taking over our country in a financial takeover.